You're listening to This Week in E-Commerce, the Ecom Nation podcast. Dive into the top online retail headlines with your hosts, Paul Waddy and Chia. Let's load up the cart. Welcome back to This Week in E-Commerce, episode 1.5. I am Chia, and with me again is Paul Waddy. Paul, how are you, mate?
Good, Mal. Greetings. 1.5. Wow, we're plowing through these.
We are. This is the official 1.5, but if you count all the random ones we were uploading to LinkedIn, there's probably like 15 or 20 or something like that.
Yes. How was your week?
It's been really good. It's been a really good week. Minimal travel, so I actually feel like I've got a lot done this week, which is fantastic. So getting on top of a lot of things. It's been it's been a bit weird weather as well here. So we had a couple of days in Adelaide, which were just absolutely bucketing down after some sensational weather at the start of the week. But aside from that,
as you know, Sydney always has good weather now. So
I don't know. I was there last week, and there was a couple of days there it was pretty wet.
Yeah, it's been raining today.
Yeah. And how's your week been?
Good. Yeah. It feels weird to not have seen you this week in person.
We were on a lot of calls together, though.
We were on a lot of calls. It was good. We had a board meeting yesterday with e-shopping group, and they announced some amazing results. That was a real high for me. So,
And without excessive discounting, I was very pleased to see.
Oh, that was the best part. I'd love to get them on, maybe Ovi or Jing, to talk with us on one of these sessions here, because I think people would learn a lot. You know, most people here wouldn't know who e-shopping group is. They're just quietly building in the background this amazing business that's process driven and efficient and good team. And that was a really good day for us, I think. And ended the week on a high.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also did a webinar this week as well.
We did, yeah. The webinar was great. We had a lot of people on there. Some really good questions that we need to get back to at some point. I think we're going to talk about one of them today, actually. But thanks for everybody that tuned in. I think you'll probably be able to download it at ecomnation.com.au if you want to check it out.
You will. Go to the website and we'll be able to send you the recording if you do want to find out more about that. So we did dive deep into MER, marketing efficiency ratio, and how you should be using it to run your e-commerce store to be able to scale and grow profitably. So it was a good conversation, I felt.
Ooh.
But this week there have been, it feels like a little bit of a slower week after Amazon and Shopify's news last week and Klaviyo's IPO. But still, having said that though, there has been some good news this week. There has been news, not necessarily good news, which is the first one I want to talk about, where ABS data is now showing that the retail sector is technically in a retail recession. So retail employment jobs fell by $46,000 between February and May this year, and retail sales have also declined as well over that same period. So technically, we are in a recession with 3 straight months of declining employment and revenue growth. We talk about this a lot, so I don't necessarily know if we need to dive into this too much longer rather than be all doom and gloom. Nothing which we didn't know already.
Yep. It's there's nothing we didn't know, and I think it joins. I think last week we talked about clothing being in a recession. Clothing has gone backwards, 0.8% or whatever it was, quarter on quarter for a couple of quarters in a row. So I don't think there's anything there that surprises anybody. I guess what it does do is probably solidifies that point that still some retailers don't believe, which is that we are, macro factors don't apply to us. Like somehow the environment doesn't apply to us. Well, it does. There's heaps happening out there, and things are tough. So as we always say, if you're growing in this environment, you're doing really, really well.
You are. If you're growing or even staying kind of steady, you're doing okay. If you're growing, you're doing fantastic. Yeah. There was a great Harvard Business Review report from 2010, actually, right after the GFC, which holds still true today, where the large chunk of businesses really just hold still. I think there's about 19% who will go out of business over this period, about 67% who will continue to, who will kind of keep things roughly steady. And then there'll be a small percentage, I think about 8 or 9%, who will actually grow through an economic downturn. And a lot of it is by watching their margins, cutting costs, unnecessary costs, and reinvesting strategically back into market growth. And those are the ones who do really well. And I think even with some of the ones we just talked about, like eShopping Group, have done that really well. They focused on cutting the cogs, cutting their operational costs, their unnecessary ones anyway, and reinvesting that back into smart market growth initiatives, which isn't just about marketing. It's also about looking at the right sort of product development, the customer experience, those things which have helped grow their market share.
Yeah, that's so true. I think the same as what we were talking about during COVID, which is lots of businesses picked up bad habits, because really anybody could make money in COVID. But a lot of them found it easy and therefore picked up bad habits. And then COVID ended and they simply closed down, or they're just about to. The same goes in a tough time. If you can actually learn great habits in tough times. And I think, if you're a company that can really focus on efficiency and what can we do better, and those 2 or 3 or 4 top level strategic things that really move the needle, then when you come out the end of this little recession or whatever we're in, you're a stronger business. So, and the eShopping Group, again, is a great example of that. Just buckling down, making some big decisions, and they're the sort of businesses that I think will come out of this and absolutely boom, because they picked up great habits. There's nothing like a bit of stress to form great habits.
Yeah. I gotta say though, you mentioned before about the COVID boom. It made everyone look like a hero. It made a lot of people in the industry look like a hero, and I feel that I do kind of, in a very kind of not sadistic way, but in a very, I enjoy the wartime period, because you really see, who's actually got what it takes. When the chips are down, who's actually got what it takes to actually think strategically and think through this problem, rather than trying to spend their way out of it, which I feel a lot of retailers have tried to do unsuccessfully. So another story to move on to is
a turnaround as well.
Sorry.
I like a good turnaround as well, when the company needs turning around. And again, I think that sorts out the men from the boys, or the girls from the women. And I agree. I enjoy that more. Yeah.
Another story is Apple. Their shares also fell recently after China decided to ban the use of iPhones by government officials. Now, this is a pretty big one, and it feels also kind of retaliatory as well, given the treatment which TikTok got a couple of years ago, with US government phones banning the use of TikTok on those devices, and a lot of US public institutions banning the use of TikTok on those on their internal devices as well. And when you look at the broader implications of this, it really does show quite a few things. There's actually a hell of a lot to unpack in this story. Number one being, it feels a bit retaliatory for Apple moving some of their manufacturing out of China. So Apple's obviously, has a great relationship with Foxconn, who manufactures a lot of the iPhones, and they do employ a lot of people in China. But diversifying, like many other companies, diversifying a lot of their supply chain out of China. So moving that out of there, this also feels kind of retaliatory. But also China also looking to shore up their own internal, their own home domestic tech companies as well, by helping to protect them to some degree, by forcing a lot of their domestic customers to go and buy local devices. And when you consider that China makes up about 20% of Apple's overall revenue, it's a pretty bold move. And you wonder where this continues to go with increasing tensions between China and the US.
It's a weird one. It's a weird. Apple. We talk about Apple a lot because so much has happened since we started this podcast with Apple. From the retail closures to downsizing, to the slowing down of the iPhone sales, to now this. They are, the golden child is copping a bit of a hiding at the moment, and as you pointed out, the share price is slowing, and that's why I don't buy Mac. So I think I think it's a weird one. Like how many? I mean, are they going to? It's clearly sending a signal, because how much sales are they really going to lose by officials not buying iPhones? So it's clearly sending a signal. Yeah, you'd be sweating, wouldn't you? If it's 20% of your 20% of your revenue, would be absolutely sweating if trying to do anything like this. So, yeah, it's a little bit worrying for them.
But having said that, though, that their market cap is still over $3 trillion. So I don't think anyone's too worried. If you own Apple stock, you're not selling anytime soon. I'll tell you that. This probably might be a good time to buy, actually, in the dip.
Oh, I
Um,
buy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but also I think a few weeks ago as well, we talked about Apple's earnings, and a lot of their earnings and where they had shown the most growth was actually in their services, not their devices. So even then, you look at this, going like, well, does it really hurt them if people are going to continue to use all the Apple subscription services like Apple TV, Apple Music, etc. So while they're growing those areas, the App Store is still the gift that keeps on giving for them at their 30% commission off that. I don't yet. I think it will hurt, but I think they're also doing a lot to actually diversify and develop other revenue streams, like I said, with services as well. So we'll watch that one.
Yeah.
With
We all pay Apple, don't we? I don't know what I'm paying them for, but I know that they're on my bank statement.
I do have a lot of little Apple charges which come out, especially when you have kids. Then you start buying all the apps once they start using their devices. Now, a topic which I really want to dive into is one of the questions we actually got, which we didn't get time to answer on the podcast, which is a question from Kelly Montgomery, who asks us, is there a certain time when you should start social and Google ads? Is it when you have X number of followers right out of the gates, pre and post launch, a certain period of time, or when you have reached a particular amount of revenue? Paul, I'm going to throw to you first before I answer this.
Yeah. Kelly listened to our webinar, and she's also a student in my course at learnecommerce.com. So I want to give her a shout out in her new business, if I can remember the name. But she had a really cool thing that you would probably like, Mal, which was tea towels made from recycled products. And why that stood out to me, it was just like, cool. So that's different. And anytime I hear something that's different, I'm interested. So big shout out to you, Kelly, and check out her website. If I can remember what it is, I'll give it a shout. I don't know. This is a hard question. Reality is like, and I know Kelly's position, right? So trying to grow a business, and the reality is like you and I run an agency, so of course we're going to always say that most businesses we work with will be running Facebook and Google ads. Some maybe just Meta, some maybe just Google. But look, it's part of life. It's definitely part of life. And it's a great channel for acquiring customers and for keeping customers, for sure. When to do it? I mean, really, it's day one. Because if you can start an online business and be successful from day one without paid media, I'm in. I'm all in. I'll invest with you. That's the dream. But put simply, one, that's almost impossible. And two, you should be able to get a return from your Google and Meta if it's run properly. So why wouldn't you? So unless you're running unprofitable campaigns, then you want to make that part of your strategy from day one. And I think if you don't, here's the problem. You start so slowly, you get no traffic, very little sales and traffic, and you give up. And you see that a lot. Like, I'm not going to advertise on Facebook just yet, or I'm going to spend such a small amount, not enough to get any traction at all. Oh, there's no sessions, there's no traffic, there's no sales. I'm going to quit. So I do think it's important to use Meta pretty much from day one. It just comes back to what we spoke about in the webinar, Mal, which is know how much to spend. Find your sweet spot, and yeah, I think Meta still works. Is it easy? No, that's why we're out there with our agency. But Meta and Google Ads absolutely play a part. So I'd be having some form of strategy from day one.
So I've been looking at it in terms of like, are you willing to have a cold start, or are you trying to get a bit of a rolling start? If you feel like you need a bit of a rolling start, then by all means, and you've got the money to burn, then by all means start with doing some ads. But I'm always a bigger advocate for trying to make sure that you've got product market fit first. And you can experiment with a little bit of paid advertising and things like that, but also organically, just looking at, okay, well, can I get product market fit by ensuring that when I post about my products, that people are actually interested in it? I'm actually talking about the right things. I've got the right message message which I'm putting out there, which resonates with people. You can do this now with TikTok, Reels, Instagram Reels can get massive traction in a very short period of time. I had a client the other week, one of their customers who bought one of their products posted a video just unsolicited, and it went absolutely mental. And they sold over $100,000 of this product in a matter of days. So they were extremely happy with that. But it happened very organically because they had a product which had really good product market fit. And that's kind of the thing which I always look at. Like, do you actually have good product market fit with your product first before you start investing a lot in ads? And I've seen it happen a lot where people who don't really know who they're for or what their positioning is or even what problem they're trying to solve, they just start blasting ads out there and they wonder, why is no one buying this? And a lot of it is because they haven't actually niched down properly. They haven't actually figured out who's the market I'm trying to serve with my product. So I always look at, do you have that first, or do you know what that is first? And have you been able to validate it before you start trying to accelerate it with paid advertising? And I see it too often where people look at paid advertising as a panacea. They look at it as like, if I just had more traffic to my site, I'm going to convert better. And they start just pumping in more and more money into it. And I can think of like half a dozen brands who I've advised, over the years, who've been in that problem. And what I say to all of them is like, who are you actually for? Let's figure out what your brand is. Let's figure out who your customers are. Particularly if you're something like, an activewear brand, right? There's so much activewear out there, that they're like, they're a dime a dozen now, that if you don't really have a community who you're trying to solve a problem for or who you're trying to serve, you're not really going to get very far because no one's going to pay attention. You're just going to get lost in the noise. But if you're clear about who you're serving, who your customer is, what resonates with them, what problem you're solving for them, then I think you can get more traction with it. And then you can use the ads to then accelerate that, to try to amplify that message. But also there's things like Google as well, where, Google ads, if you've got a product with existing demand for it, which with a very niche audience where people are serving a problem. And, one example, is a friend of mine who started a product, who has a product for cold sore treatment, where it actually is a great product where if you use it pretty much as soon as you see the first signs of a cold sore, it will start working. Basically, they're just running the business just in Google ads, and it works fantastically because people who have that problem are searching for that product and they can sell that. So they were able to scale successfully from the very beginning with Google ads because it was such a defined niche. Whereas if it was something which was a bit more generic, like skincare, like if you're starting a skincare brand, like wanting to start a moisturizer brand, for instance, you can't start with Google because it's so saturated and no one knows your brand. So you need to stand out. You got to think about what are those things to help you stand out. But you need to know that first before you run your Meta ads, your Facebook ads. Otherwise, what are you putting out in the ads? And so I would say you probably need to also then test that and validate your assumptions about what you're about, what your brand is, what problem you're solving. Validate that organically before advertising.
Absolutely agree. I think the assumption that you're going to advertise from day one is prefaced by the fact that you should have followed all of those fundamentals beforehand before you even consider building a website, let alone running Facebook ads. And that is a problem that happens a lot, is that people throw up half-assed products and run a few Facebook ads and then it doesn't work. But yeah, product market fit, unit economics, reliable supply chain, that whole sort of thing, great website, proper launch, and then the Facebook ads, play a part. I think, by the way, Kelly's business is tranquiltowels.com.au, tea towels made from recycled plastic. That's a really good point that I think we should discuss it another time as well, that you just brought up, was Google versus Facebook. And the fact that if you have a cold sore, I assume you go onto Google and you type, oh, what can I do for my cold sore? Which is a great Google play, whereas a lot of brands, like probably Kelly doesn't necessarily need to be in Google right now, because I don't think, although she's got a great niche, I would doubt that people are searching for tranquil tea towels, recycled tea towels. And so it's probably more about building awareness around the solution. I think for Kelly, if you're listening, you almost have a role to educate people on the problem as well. So it's like you're actually selling to people who maybe don't know they're contributing to a problem. So you have quite a tough job in that you're actually got to educate people. Oh, you need to buy my tea towels. Whereas the cold sore guys, like, you're going to get them. They're like, oh, I need something for my cold sore. I've got a problem. You've actually got to teach people why they are contributing to a problem, which is landfill and so on and so on. But I would, maybe that's a topic for another day.
I think that'd be a great topic.
Really good question.
Yeah, Kelly, I would love to see you actually doing this more on your organic socials. If you are already, just posting a lot more content about your products and how it's different and how it helps keep, how it keeps landfill plastic out of landfills. I think there's a great opportunity there to really do some storytelling around Tranquil Towels and the difference that you're making in the environment. So I love products like this, which are taking a waste, something which is going to go to landfill and helping to transform into something else, much like ZeroCo, who we do a lot of work with as well.
Yep.
And Paul, a lot of those things you just said before, they sound like I could read them in a book.
Yeah, you can read them all in 2 books, Shopify for Dummies or Selling Online for Dummies, or at learnecommerce.com, where we can talk about it in over 50 high-definition lessons.
Including 2 by me.
Which were great, by the way.
So, thank you.
Jump on.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, I think that's all we've got time for this week. But before we wrap, Paul, anything top of mind at the moment which you're looking at?
I love hearing these questions from people like Kelly. I would encourage us to give us questions like this to break down, because it'd be interesting to know what you guys want to talk about. And that was a great question. So, just generally, I'm really enjoying learning about new businesses like Kelly's. So there's so many out there, and especially through the course that I'm doing, there's little businesses popping up that are there's some real go-getters out there and some really great ideas. And I think it's what we always talk about. It's like, get your fundamentals right, and there's plenty of money to be made. But I think that's what's exciting me at the moment, just watching all these newbies come into e-commerce and give it a go. It's really exciting.
Fantastic. And later this week, I am going to be doing a podcast with Supermetrics. So anyone who's seen me talk for a little while knows that I'm a big fan of Supermetrics, which is a data connector which pulls in all your data from Shopify, all your ad platforms into either Google Sheets or to Looker Studio, so you can build these amazing dashboards and really help you level up your analysis across your entire business. So they've recently invited me to speak at a webinar, to be keynoting a webinar on generative AI and data analysis. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of how I've been using ChatGPT to analyze large data sets and draw some pretty interesting conclusions from it, which has helped to change strategy for a number of retailers. So watch out for that one next week.
I've seen you do that, Mal, and it's impressive. And I think, that'll be a really good one. I know you're right into your ChatGPT, and the last prezzo you did for a client was awesome. So that'll be really good.
All right. On that note, thank you very much. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good week.